you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think it's so nice to have recognition, especially by our peers. Adult ed educators work so hard, and we're very often the underappreciated stepchild. So I
Yes.
am very much in favor of singing the praises of everyone who works with adult learners, whatever capacity. My name is Astrid Robitel, whatever. I taught seventh grade way too long to be insulted by almost anything. Um, I am a national program and online training specialist for CASAS. I'm also the New York State Navigator, having recently transplanted from the East Coast in Connecticut to Central Illinois. Where I live now in Springfield, the land of Lincoln. So I went from the land of Mark Twain to the land of Lincoln. But I'm fortunate enough to work for CASAS and work remotely. So um, I have a great presentation for you, but I also want to say I very much welcome questions. So interrupt, shout out. I'll keep an eye on the chat, however you're most comfortable. I'm going to get started and share my screen, but please don't hesitate to ask questions. I want to be sure everybody's got their questions answered um, before we end. Can everybody see my screen? All right, great. So getting to know CASAS. There's a lot to learn, and this is going to feel like a fire hose, but as mentioned, it will be recorded, and I can get this PowerPoint out so that it can be distributed if that's okay. So this is me. A little bit about CASAS. CASAS is, we were actually established in 1980. We've been around since 1980. Whoops, I don't know why that happened. We are kind of the OG of assessments for adult learners. We were the first. We were the first to create assessments that were unique to adult learners and were not recycled uses of K through 12 assessments. We're a nonprofit. We are um, comprised, it's a very small company. There's under 50 employees, and all of us have worked as adult educators, program administrators in the trenches. We all have pretty extensive adult ed background. We did a little survey about a year ago of staff and found that between all of us, we have over 1,000 years of adult ed experience. So we know like the budget battles and the funding issues and all those challenges and wonderful, wonderful parts of working with adult learners of all stripes. So that's a little bit about it. We're also in 50 states and 3 territories. So that's a little bit about us. One thing that sets us a bit of apart is in terms of our e-testing, our computer-based testing, our e-test units are not test specific. So you do not buy X number of reading and X number of math or X number of listening. You just buy test units and you use them however you want to use them. They also never expire. So if you purchase 100 test units this year, we have a special pricing agreement with New York. There'll be more about that on the next slide. If you purchase 100 units and you only use 70, those remaining 30 roll over forever and ever. We are also the only test assessment vendor to routinely, all the time, receive the full 7-year NRS approval from the federal government. That's the longest the approval that they offer. One thing, it's not on this slide, but I do want to mention we are also in the Burroughs Mental Measurements Yearbook. We are the only, which is kind of like an independent evaluative body that evaluates assessments, and we are the only adult ed test publication that was included in that. So we're really proud of that. That's a big feather in our cap. So I did want to mention it. Let's see. First question everybody wants to know is, okay, well, how much is it going to cost me? So we have a special pricing agreement with New York, and so our e-test units are $2.60 each, and that is for the enhanced level. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but that's for the enhanced level. And our paper tests are 10% off our list price right now with free shipping. The paper tests are not consumable, so you don't have to purchase them over and over and over. If you want to use paper testing, you just purchase them once, and then you can reuse them over and over and over with answer sheets, which are consumable. If you have very, very low level A students, as um, all of you, I'm sure, do. If you deem it necessary, you can use the level A assessments as a consumable, but you'll learn a lot more about the level A's here as we go along. E-testing can be done remotely. So if you have remote classes or students who cannot make it in for testing for any reason, CASAS e-test can be delivered securely and remotely. We use a secure test browser and Zoom or like a video conferencing platform. So that is also something to keep in mind with our assessments. And you just use the same test units. There's no separate ones. There's no extra charge. There's nothing. Okay. So the purchase that you would do for e-testing is just the test units. There's a $15, I think, processing fee per order, but that is it. The database is free. The database that collects all the e-test data and you use to print out the reports is free. That's TOPS Pro Enterprise. There's no charge for any of the training. There's no charge for tech support. Our tech support is phenomenal. They're always there when you need them. So there's really no other charges. So the only cost, and there's no yearly fee. And our test units never expire. We're a nonprofit, so that's how our pricing is structured. All right. So e-tests, they are more cost efficient because everything is done automatically. You can sit a student down, they take a test, and the results are available immediately. There's no correcting, there's no staff time really involved in any of that. Digital literacy skills are things that we need to build with our students anyway. And the e-tests it's kind of click and arrow. It's really just a click. They don't need extensive digital literacy skills at all. And even in some of those newer Chromebooks are touch screens, so they can just touch. The data is captured instantly and the reports are available absolutely instantly. We have a whole team called our Go Live team that gets you started with e-testing and gets all of your systems set up and then supports you all along the way. So getting set up for that is something that we have a whole team that does every day. So that's super helpful. And the computers that you use for CASAS e-testing do not have to be dedicated to CASAS testing. So you can use them for any other thing. You can have a remote lab that goes in and out if you have access to a computer lab. It's just a secure browser that the test is delivered via. So yeah, you don't need to have a bank of computers or a set of devices that is just dedicated to CASAS e-tests. All right. I mentioned the database. That is TOPS Pro Enterprise. It works hand and glove with CASAS e-test. So as soon as the student takes a test in CASAS e-test, the results are instantly available in TOPS Pro Enterprise. We're going to look at a lot of reports today, but it's kind of an embarrassment of riches. There's so many reports. And so that transition happens simultaneously. The data transfer goes in seamlessly into TOPS Pro. Again, they're available instantly, all of the results. And with paper testing, you can scan in the results with an approved scanner. I have a list that I can share with you. So the reports, the bubble sheets can be scanned in, and then that data is available in TOPS Pro Enterprise if you have TE. So our tech support team is very used to dealing with paper testing programs who use scanners. So just because you're a paper testing agency doesn't mean that our tech support team isn't there to assist. So they're always there. And then as soon as you scan in those results, out come the reports. So they're available instantly and they're saved. So you can, when you generate them, you can save them as a PDF, you can print them, you can, add them to a student's file, either electronically or paper. Okay, so paper tests. We have a TAM, a test administration manual, and that has all of the answer keys. So you can either scan, you can either correct them, yourself, and then and then there's a chart so you'll know kind of what level the student is at and what the appropriate post-test would be for that student. Or if you want to scan them or manually enter them into TOPS Pro, you can do it manually or you can scan them. This list here in the peach colored box is the scanner, a list of scanners. We do not sell scanners, but it is a list of scanners that work with our database, TOPS Pro Enterprise. This one here with the asterisk, I am told by tech support is the one that most programs who scan in answers use. I don't know whether that's because it's the least expensive. That very well could be, because again, show me an adult ed program that is rolling in cash, and and I'll say that I live to see that. But yeah, it could be that this is the least expensive, but this is, I am told, the one that most programs use. But if you have any of these, or if you're purchasing any of these, they'll all work as well. All right. Any questions so far? That was kind of like a really quick snapshot of CASAS e-testing and paper testing and how it works with a database. No? All right. So let's talk about our assessments. So our two test series for adult learners that are NRS approved, we have a lot of assessments, but the two that are NRS approved, the two series that are NRS approved for adult learners are our STEP series, which is for ESL learners, and our Goals 2 series, which are for ABE beginning ed students. They are both aligned to the English language proficiency standards in the case of the STEP series, and the college and career readiness standards in the case of the Goals 2 series. And as you know, the English language proficiency standards are really just a subset of the college and career readiness standards. So they are aligned to those standards. We also have a partnership with Burlington English. So if you are a Burlington English user, our STEP series really is aligned to lessons and academic focused programming in Burlington English. Barry, I'm sure, would be happy to share any more information on that. So feel free to jump in, Barry, if you want me to have to say anything. We are partners, so.
Thank you. Yes, I could take that offline. Anybody wants to talk about that.
Yeah, great. Great. Yeah, we have a really great partnership. Burlington English is aligned with CASAS assessments, and so we very much value that friendship that we have with Burlington. So those are our two test series. The test series have 5 levels, level A through E. I like this graph because you can see here that level A assessments, level B, C, D, and E, each covers 2 NRS levels. So the student always has that chance to make a level gain, okay? When they take a pre-test, and then when you post-test them, they always have that chance to make a level gain. They overlap the adjacent levels, and they cover the full range of all 6 NRS levels. And that is important as you're trying to show, program effectiveness and measurable skills gains with students' MSGs. All right. Here's what the STEP series looks like, the covers. Like everything else in adult ed, STEPS is an acronym. Surprise, surprise. It stands for Student Test of English Progress and Success. So this is our STEP series for ESL, color-coded. This color coding uh, moves through all of our assessments. So blue is always level A and purple is always level E, available in CASAS e-test and paper test. So just to give you a little bit of background, the ESL assessment step series are NRS approved through 2030. We are already working, obviously, on the next generation, but we do have until 2030. These are approved all the way through. These are hyperlinks. You can see right here, reading steps and listening steps. If you click this link, it takes you to our web page for each of these test series, where there is a wealth of documentation on each of these test series. A lot of which we're going to look at snapshots of in this presentation, but it'll take you through, there's FAQs for each test series, there's blueprints, content standard blueprints, CASAS competency blueprints, grade level equivalent charts, all of that information. So I do want to point out, and I'll send this, I'll report out so that you can have it, or send this PowerPoint out so you can have it, but these are hyperlinked. So take a look and check things out. So that's our reading and listening series. And I like this chart because this shows each level of the test, the number of items. This column shows the time that they're allotted. But we are constantly looking at our data at CASAS, and based on hundreds of thousands of test administrations, this is the average test time it takes students to complete the assessment. So you can see it's significantly less. Even up here at level A, where there's larger chunks of narratives that they have to read, it takes them significantly less time on average. So that I always, one of the questions that's often asked is, well, how long does it take the students to test? And that's pretty much your answer. They have up to this amount of time, and we do have extensive accommodations for students who need it. We have extended time, we have untime, we can you can make the screen bigger, you can buy large print test assessments, assessment booklets if you need to. We have a lot of accommodations that we can make, but the preloaded test time is here for each, and you can see the timing goes up because the amount of text that they have to engage with, and that the difficulty level does raise. That's reading, and here's listening. Same setup. This is the average test time it takes. And I do want to point out here, you can see how in this column, that time it takes is increasing steadily until level E, where it drops by 20 minutes. All right, that's because in level E, the questions are not repeated. It's a listening test, but in level E, again, you're at the highest NRS level of assessment, the questions are not repeated. So that's why they're allotted less time. It's not a typo. Okay. Here's a look at the grade level equivalency charts for each. This is reading, this is listening. Our test series are scored a little differently. So they have a raw score, which is the number correct. That translates into a scale score, which is here. And these scale scores correspond with the NRS levels and those level names, which you're familiar with. And then here is the grade level equivalent here for ESL. Goes up to 9+ because if they they get into this exit advanced ESL above a 239, then they would be moving into an ABE class and into the goals 2 assessments. Okay, and same thing over here for listening. All right. Again, jump in if you've got any questions. I'm happy to answer.
Esther, I have a question. Sorry.
Yeah.
So if a student score advanced ESL 6, or if they exit, so let's say that's their pre-test.
Yep.
So for their post-test, they have to go um to goals? What would be their pretest on?
Okay, so if a student in their pretest on intake, or if you have existing students and you're transitioning them to CASAS, to the STEP series, and they test in this range in reading. One of the things you can do if they're ESL, if they test in this range, is give them a listening test. Chances are the listening test is going to be lower. That's one of the last, modalities that we acquire in language acquisition. And if you retest them in listening, chances are they'll score down here. And so then they'll stay in ESL. Okay. But if they score at this range and you feel, yeah, they're ready to move into, you would need to retest them in a goals test because it's apples and oranges, it is in order for you to report to state and federal, you have to pre-test and post-test in the same test series. So you would want to then retest them with goals too. We've done extensive studies at CASAS with GED testing service and looking at students longitudinally because there are many states that use CASAS only as assessments. Connecticut is one. And so every ESL student uses the STEP series and then moves into the Goals 2 series. And like I said, we're always looking at data. And we have found that with the STEP series moving into the Goals 2 series, students that top out of the STEP series are very well prepared to move into an ABE class and do well. So following those students, longitudinally, we have found that they've met with success, if in fact that's their goal. Some ESL students have a high school credential or are not interested in getting a high school credential in this country, and that's okay too. So yeah, we have found that they've done well. But if they do top out and you move them into an ABE, you would need to retest them with the goals too, reading goals too. That's to get a good handle on their actual ability and also for reporting. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Great question. Great question. So that's actually a really nice segue because we talked about the upper end. Now let's talk about those students, and we all have them, who come to us very low English skills. Like I said, we were used in 50 states and 3 territories, so we are no stranger to accommodating students with very low literacy levels. And so for the level A, this is part of our blueprint. And again, you're going to see these in detail in a minute, but all available on our website at that link that I showed you. Level A consists of largely high frequency vocabulary pictures and text. And by text, I mean like stop, exit, very, very kind of like symbolic low level words. So the level A assessment really does kind of accommodate those sort of pre-literacy learners. And you 0 correct answers on a level A will generate a scale score. This didn't used to be the case, and that was by edict of the NRS, the CASAS, and the federal government. And we petitioned them and said, hey, there are many states that cannot serve an adult learner until they meet like a threshold score. They get a scale score. They can't put them into classes. So when we say to them, well, give them some instruction and then retest them, they can't because they can't serve them. So we were successful in getting CASAS and the NRS to say, oh, okay, just for the level A, even if they get no questions or 2 questions or 4 questions, it'll generate the lowest level scale score so that then you can say, yep, they have a scale score for your state and federal reporting, and then put them into what would obviously be, a low beginner class. There's no harm in giving them, a low level score because there's nowhere to go but up. And we know that with instruction, they'll make that gain. Okay, so low level, level A, and we'll look at some sample test items here in a minute. Okay, so these are the blueprints that you would see. These are free and available on our web page. Again, level A, 43% pictures. This core, excuse me. Level A is NRS functioning levels 1 and 2. Do you remember that stair-step chart I showed you earlier where it says that each test level covers 2 NRS levels? This is what this is referring to over here. English language proficiency standard level 1. This column shows the ELP standard that is covered in that particular level test. And that's the percentage of the test items. Okay. So you can see exactly what is covered on level A. Burlington English knows this as well. So if you use Burlington English and you pre-test a student and they land in level A and as a pre-test, there's a lot of materials available. I'm not getting paid to say that, by the way. We work very closely with Burlington English and we appreciate their partnership. This is level E, and you can see this pie chart looks a little more equal, doesn't it? This gets to your question about what if they top out of level E. If we look at what is assessed in level E, point of view, using supporting evidence, inference, those are some higher order thinking skills and skills that you would expect to see in an ABE classroom. So you can see here that a student who tops out of this level E would be very well prepared to then move into an ABE class. So, the pie chart for level E is pretty equitable in terms of the content areas. You can see it's ELP standards 8 and 1 as level A was, but we've also added in level 6, which is point of view and supporting evidence. And this is the percentage of the test items. So then they're pretty equitable. And again, NRS functioning level, EFL levels 5 and 6, and ELP standards 4 and 5. Okay, so that's level E. Obviously, in between there are B, C, and D, but for this, and those are all available on our website too. So if you want to take a look at those, it's all in one document. Any questions? Okay, here's some sample test items. Again, a level A and a level E. Level A, here it is. We encourage you to use these sample test items with your students. This is a PDF that you can download. They're set up several different ways. You can download them by NRS level. You can download them by test level. And you can slice and dice and copy and paste and whatever you need to do. But when you print them, when you look at them in the PDF, this is the format they are. It gives you the high frequency vocabulary, content area, the standard that is addressed, the CASAS competencies, we'll talk about those in a minute, task area, and there's the key, the answer. So task area is something that I think is always given short shrift. When I was a teacher, I always tended to focus a lot on task area. Task area is how the information is presented. So if you think of a math test, say you have an ABE class and you're working on line graphs. Well, the student may be able to do like the subtraction problem to see the difference in like two sets of a line graph. But if they don't understand how to interpret a line graph, they're not going to get the question right. So task area, we do provide a lot of sample practice items on different types of tasks. We encourage teachers to take a look at when their student takes one of the tests to look at a task area report. So you may know, does your student have trouble with signs or price tags or anything of that nature? Because you would want to then present them with opportunities to practice and engage with those kinds of texts. All right. So over here we have a level E reading step sample. You can see it's quite a bit of text for them to get through, hence the longer time that's allotted for them to take the test. I put one sample question here, but one of the things that is kind of nice about our higher level tests where they do have to engage in more text is that we try to have multiple questions referring to the same piece of text. So they're not having to read, a big long 3 paragraphs about dental hygiene and answer one question, and then read a whole nother 3 paragraphs about, civic engagement and answer one question. We really try and make the time that a student spends engaging with that text meaningful, and have them really be able to dig in and sink their teeth into the answer more than one question. All right. So that's reading samples. Here's listening. Now for level A, there are pictures. All right. The names are spoken, so they will hear a person say umbrella, and they will have to choose. All right. If you're using paper testing, it's on CDs. Okay. If it's e-testing, they just have headphones, and it's part of the whole system. This, again, this is an NRS level 6, so probably a level E assessment. They don't see the text because then it's a reading test. They hear this, okay? And then they hear the question. Now, all of these samples, like I said, are available on our website, including audio clips of sample listening questions. So that's super helpful. And again, we really encourage people to use those, because it's a really low stakes way to get your students, some practice in test taking, for them to practice for you to teach and for them to practice that really important skill of how to, look at a question and narrow it down to maybe 2 possible answers and make the decision, whether it's 1 or 2. So we do encourage you to use those, and you can download those sound clips, which are helpful as well. Again, that's a level 6. So we went from just a single word, up to here. And again, getting back to that question, we do find, I love this graphic. We do find that students who go through our ESL step series are very well prepared to make that bridge into the goals and be successful. All right, here's our goals 2 series. Again, this is for ABE. I don't know why this is a separate one. This is for ABE, GED, or high set learners. Also an acronym, greater opportunities for adult learning success. We make everything an acronym in adult ed. I know so many staff who've come from like the K through 12 world. One of the hardest things is like learning all the acronyms, right, for them. I always think there should be in new teachers' toolkits, right? NRS approved assessments, again, these are linked, so you can follow these links to go to our site and get all the same documentation for these series. Reading goals is approved through 2032. It's was a little behind the approval process for math goals. We got that one off the ground first, so that's approved through 2030. Both got the 7-year approval. It's just they were reading. Math goals was sent in and approved, and then COVID happened, and there was COVID happened, and then things, how to say this delicately, reading goals 2 was ready and sent in for approval in the late fall. The deadline for them is always October. So they were sent in October of 2024. And so then it had to grind through federal channels after January 1 of 2025. So, but it did get the 7-year approval. So it's a little, you have a couple more years of reading goals too. Again, here is the test timing, the same kind of a chart, and this is for our reading goals too. Again, far less time than what is allotted, and those scale score ranges are in accordance. These I should have pointed out this same on the other form. This links to the actual PDF of the standards and the CASAS competencies. So that's reading goals. This is math goals. I think most of you here are ESL, are you or no? Yeah. So I won't spend a lot of time here, but they're all set up exactly the same way. But again, you can see that's a half hour less that it takes students to take the math, highest level math than what is allotted. So we're always crunching that data. And here's the NRS levels and the grade level equivalents for our goals 2 series. And you see here, these do go up to grade 12 and above because these are geared towards preparing students for that. Oh, good, you do have quite a few ABE, great. So these are geared towards preparing students to take that GED or HiSET, whichever you use in New York or your agency uses. Or NEDP, because NEDP is used quite a bit in New York State. You're a great NEDP partner for us. Here's a look at the blueprints for reading goals 2 and math goals 2. You can see they're set up exactly the same way. Level A, lowest level, 36% vocabulary. So a good large portion of that is vocabulary. And this is the anchor standards here. NRS levels 1 and 2, college and career readiness standards A and B. Okay, and the same with math. And you can see, again, these are pretty equitable here. So it's like 25% geometry. Okay, but that's a really big category. So what is it? What do they have to know in geometry? Well, we break it down here. Volume and surface area. Okay, so I know what I need to have my students learn. Volume and surface area. Pythagorean theorem in real world contexts. Congruence and similarity, and then density based on area and volume. And these are all from the college and career readiness standards. It's important to note that when they need a formula like the Pythagorean theorem, the test, it's given to them in the test. So they know what it's given at the top and they just have to apply it. Okay. Also, they can use a calculator and scrap paper for math. In CASAS e-test, the calculator is built into the system and they can use it on the screen. If they prefer, they can use, like a standard GED calculator that you give them. Some students prefer that, but math is the only modality where they can have scrap paper. Okay, but they can have that. You just collect it afterwards. And these blueprints are available just as with the ESL series, the STEP series for content standards, competencies. The CASAS competencies are, they were what our assessments were based on before the college and career readiness standards came about. There are a series of competencies that apply to real world living in the adult learner's world, like reading a prescription bottle, finding health resources in the community. And all of our assessments are based on both the college and career readiness standards, English language proficiency standards, as well as the CASAS competencies. So those are linked back on here. And I do encourage you to take a look at them. They're kind of part of the genius of CASAS is that they're still so relevant today. But do take a look. Here's some sample test items for goals 2. Here's a reading goals. Again, low level with a picture. Is this a school, a bank, a pharmacy, or a library? And task area is 4, which is a picture. And here is algebraic thinking. So again, this is an NRS level 1. It's a lower level. 8 cookies, she ate some, now she has 5 cookies left. How many did she eat? So kind of a subtraction problem there. But again, all available for use on our website, and we encourage you to use them. And here are some level E. Here's what I was talking about with that line graph. Well, you know, it's sort of a statistics and a probability problem, but if they don't understand how to read a line graph, it's going to make this question really difficult for them. So do spend time understanding task area 2, graphs, making sure your students understand not just the mathematical concepts, but how to engage with how it's presented. All right, and then here is an NRS level 6 reading assessment. So pretty lengthy passage to read I'm showing one question here, but generally there's 2 or 3 with a long passage for those higher level. Task area 3, which is like a narrative. Okay. Any questions? E-test sampler right here. If you scan this takes you to our sampler where you can look at how a student would see a CASAS e-test. It's kind of in the same environment that they would see. And you can choose any of these to kind of go through, and it walks you through some sample questions or some practice questions and then dumps you into a test. So that's there. Reports. Embarrassment of riches. We have so many reports. This, I know that it's small and hard to see, but we'll look at it in more detail in a minute. These are just kind of a smattering of some of the greatest hits reports that are used most frequently. These are all generated in our database, TOPS Pro Enterprise. So if you use eTest, they're generated automatically. If you use paper testing, you can either manually enter the students' answers, or you can scan them in using a scanner, and then get the same reports. All right, so first and foremost, what they see is this is our new personal score report. We've always had a personal score report. This is just the new version of it. So you guys are actually the first to see it. It's hot off the press. This comes, if you choose for it to, this comes onto the screen when a student submits their e-test. You can also print it when you scan in or input the test manually, paper test manually. It's available instantly in e-tests. What I love about this is it's the positive nature of it. So it'll show you today's score. So this is where they scored. It tells them their level, and it tells them what they'll work on. Okay, so at this level, what you're going to work on with your teacher is reading transportation, health, and workplace signs, frequently used words, simple word forms, labels, schedules. But it shows the previous score here. So if they have taken, like say it's a post-test, they can see their growth in no uncertain terms. Okay? It's optional. By default, it shows up if you would prefer it not to. Some programs don't want it to because they're using it, CASAS test, as a screening to like see if they made a certain cut score to enter a training program, for instance. But everything is all customizable, but this is what pops up first. It's student-centered. They can see that whole visual and how they've grown. If there's a previous test, it shows their test history. So for a pre-test, someone just coming in and taking their first CASAS, they would not have this previous score, obviously. But it does have these skill level descriptors of what they're going to work on and what they can do, which is a positive. And that's just a little blow up so you can see, highlight how that growth happened, like where they were 160 and they went up to a 190. So for a student looking at that visually, that's really affirming and positive, because the point is we want them to come back, right? We don't want to have to say, yeah, you're reading on a first grade level. That's kind of difficult and hard for an adult student. And there's a closer up of the tasks that they will be working on and what they can do at that level. So that's positive. Here's same thing in listening. It just shows the same, participating in routine conversations, understanding instructions. You can see previous score was here and now they're here. So again, these are just sample tests, but you can see that it does show the growth in both sides. Individual skills profile. This has so much information on one sheet. First, grade level equivalent if you choose for it to be there. This is more to share with staff, or you can share it with students, but it's more to share with staff or program admins. This column here, the N, is the number of questions pertaining to that specific content area. Okay, so this person scored only 17% on inference, but it was a level D test. So it was only kind of just being introduced. And there were only 6 questions on inference on that assessment. Okay. These are the CASAS competencies for reading and listening. They took 2 tests here. They're both scored here. Task areas. Don't forget them. This is how it was presented. You see the task areas here, which are, that student did really well with text, emails, articles, and narratives, but could use some practice on reading labels and charts, tables, and graphs. Okay. Content standard. These show the percent correct for ELP, reading and listening, because there's 2 tests involved here on this one report. You can also run this for just one report if you prefer. So that's a lot on that report. And then this is for the student took a ABE GED test, ABE test, and what is nice here is I mentioned the studies with GED testing service. We are able to predict the likelihood down here in the red of them passing the subset of the GED or high set. That's also an option. You can have it either show or not show. But it's helpful, especially sometimes we get those students who are gung-ho and want to sign up for the test, but might not be ready to take it. And it's really helpful to kind of have this sort of a predictor to help explain to them, let's do a little more practice and then we'll get there. Okay. These are the reports that are super helpful in driving instruction and helpful for classroom teachers. You can run them by student or class or agency or task area or competency. You can run these so many different ways. But you can see at the back of the room where this student needs to work on. We made them really graphic and really sort of easy to see where a student needs work. So for this student in particular who took a level A, they need to work on details. Now, the student needs to work on details. The N was pretty high. There were 9 questions on details. If the teacher spends time working on details at NRS levels 1 and 2, which is what a level A test covers, when they post-test, we would expect that this would be higher, and then they get their measurable skill gain. Okay. We look at another one. Whoops, that's the same one. So student comes in. I have to take a test. I'm really nervous. He speaks for adult ed students everywhere, right? When I always feel badly, we welcome them in, and then what do? We give them a test, but that's the name of the game. It's an EE test, so she's going to the computer lab. He's a new student, so it will send the locator and then the pretest. That is built in. If you have a new student, they come in on e-testing, they take a locator, which contains questions from all 6 NRS levels, and then instantly hones in on the appropriate level pretest, depending on how he answered the questions in the locator, and automatically gives them that appropriate level pretest. So from the student's perspective, it's just one testing session, and it only uses 1 test unit. Okay, so he's going to sit down, take the locator, it's going to find his appropriate pretest and put him into it. And here's his results. So, whoops, how do these change? My colors changed. Anyway, look here. If we suggest that 70% or below you provide experience and practice at that level, But in the areas where they score 80 or 70 or above, you're going to provide some challenge materials at the next NRS level. So this student is going to work on vocabulary, main idea, and inference. And that's what they're going to work on. And when time comes to post-test, these will go up and they'll have that MSG. They'll have that measurable skills gain. The ELP standards and these content area details tell you exactly what to work on. So main topic and author's purpose. If we work on authors, identifying the author's purpose and the main topic here, this 40% is going to be closer and approaching 70%, and then they'll have a higher score. They'll make that measurable skills gain. Okay, CASAS competencies. Here's where you get a little picture of the CASAS competencies. Same deal, right? We've got 70 and above. So what this person needs to work on is community resources and health. Interpreting information about the educational system from early childhood to post-secondary, aspects of society and culture, how to access and utilize the healthcare system. So probably when the student walks into the adult ed building or the library or somewhere, there's a bulletin board. And on that bulletin board, there's probably a flyer with information about a health clinic, like a breast cancer screening. As a teacher, take that off, make photocopies of it, put it back, and then use that as an actual source document that you've hit on. You've focused on accessing community resources, and you've done practice with accessing and utilizing the healthcare system and principles of health maintenance. So that's just kind of a simple example off the top of my head. But if the teacher has access to this report, you know exactly what that student, you can run it by class too, all the students who took this level C in your class. That helps drive instruction. It is overwhelming, but here's a class, here's a group, here's a student who, again, main idea and inference, get together with your peers, think about, co-teaching, think about what kind of materials you can use in your library, or you have access to in Burlington English or Aztec Learning or whatever, Khan Academy, whatever it is that you use, how to bump these up to 70%. Okay, so what does this mean? It means that teachers have to have access to these reports, whether you use paper testing, inputting them into TopPro Enterprise by scanning or manually entering, or take the leap and jump into CASAS e-testing. We have a lot of our tech support and our Go Live team is really standing willing and able to help you get started. It's not complicated, and it's really beneficial. You have access to so many reports. Trial it, do it on a trial basis. If you're paper testing, find one class that you want to kind of pilot it in your agency for. That's a great way to kind of get your feet wet with it. Or buy a scanner or have someone manually import their test answers, and then so you can get these great reports. There's a lot of information, so make sure that you are triaging. So it's a lot of information. I can't work on everything. My students are low in everything. What am I going to do? Well, get together with your colleagues. Pick one thing. Maybe it's inferences. Maybe it's academic vocabulary. Chances are, if it's a weak area for your students, it's probably weak for other students across the board. So decide that for this semester, between pre-testing and post-testing, you're going to work on that. Okay, and then really focus on that one area, and at post-testing time, see if those scores raise and that MSG goes up for that content area. All right. Training is free. Proctor training for paper testing, for using e-tests. These training modules are free. They're interactive, they're self-paced, they're multimedia, and they're on our website. So if you are interested in learning more about CASAS, Module 1, if you're thinking about implementing CASAS e-test Module 2, if you're thinking about implementing paper tests, Module 3, you can always always start and stop. There's no obligation. You can just, create your account, which is also free on the website, and dive into these assessments just to learn a little bit more about them. This is some screenshot. I know we're getting close to the end of time. Some screenshots of what our trainings look like. They're kind of fun. They each have a theme. I love a theme. I'm the online training specialist, so I do a lot of the online training planning and creation. This is our tech support team. They are real people with real faces. If you call in, they're available 12 hours a day to cover East Coast and West Coast hours. We have office hours every other week. It's just a Zoom meeting. You can jump in. It's free. You can register just to ask questions or to listen to the questions other people have. Our tech support team, they're happy to Zoom with you or meet with you or talk to your IT department or help get you started. They're wonderful. Here's the next office hours. We just had one last Friday, so our next one is next Friday. Here's a link where you can register. And we'd love to see you, even if it's just to ask a question. There's no obligation. We're there. It's very low key and it's informal, and we always make sure that we've got the appropriate CASAS staff there to answer whatever questions you have. So, do you have any questions? I threw a lot at you, and we're almost at the top of the hour, but I'm happy to. I'm going to put my email in the chat. Info@casas.org. That's an inbox that I manage, so it'll come directly to me. All right. And you can always get me that is my direct email. But info also gets me probably quicker because I'm in that all day long. So if you have any questions, and do reach out to Barry if you have questions about Burlington English. And I'll stay on for a bit if you want to ask any other questions. But have a great rest of your week and a rest of the summer, which I know is slipping by so quickly. It's hard to believe we're partway through August. But I'm very grateful for your time. I know your time is short, and I appreciate you spending it with me.
Thank you, everyone. If anyone has any questions, you can just unmute yourself and ask. All right. Thank you for taking your time to join us today. Lunch and Learn. It's nice to see some familiar faces. Thank you, Astrid, for sharing CASAS with us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Shall I shoot this PowerPoint to you? Do you want to?
Yes,
you have
we will
it?
share with the members and post also the recording.
Sounds good. I'll send it out to you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.